After a grueling test of my physical limitations battling a skeleton wizard archer from the dark depths, which totally happened, okay? Okay! I secured my prize, a skeleton spawner. Ha! For a laugh, I decided to pretend I was an explorer that just discovered some new wondrous technology and was presenting my findings to a befuddled audience. Simple people of the overworld, thank you for gathering here today. This is a spawner.
Interesting.
A nifty little device that summons nightmare creatures from the void and manifests them into the real world.
Oh my god, I didn't think that such things were possible in this day and age.
They come in 6 different flavours: crackhead, anorexic, double quadruped, poisonous double quadruped, hellspawn, and really annoying. The spawner may only activate when it's dark enough and if a player is within 15 blocks. Here's a handy visual representation of the spawner's range. Also remember that the range extends into every direction.
Interesting.
Some of the monsters that manifest from it drop useful items upon death, so players can manipulate spawners to harvest those items and or gain experience points.
Interesting.
Ladies and gents, the spawner! After the imaginary council meeting where I got fake permission I didn't need to install a skeleton summoning machine, I opened my eyes and went to grab some tools. It's time to dig an hole. Back at base, I grabbed sticks, iron and cobblestone and made 3 iron pickaxes and 2 stone shovels. I actually didn't need many tools as I would probably mine the materials I needed after a certain depth. Even though I wasn't straying that far from base, I needed a bed and a double chest to deposit the many blocks I would be collecting as I dug. I kinda needed to bulk out my building block collection anyway, and as the spawner was connected to my functional underground cave kingdom, I could easily store stuff down there temporarily. Last up, I got some torches and a source of nutrition, and I was on my way. The predefined 9x9 digging area was calling to me. "Ooh, Rodney, come and put your spade in me." Yeah, you do a bit of digging here and there in Minecraft at the start, but just like a divorced person into women, your first proper hole in a new territory is a very sacred thing. Usually moments like this are very private, but to be honest, I don't mind sharing this moment with you. And get ready to take notes, because I dig the best holes, you know what I'm saying? I unleashed my eager tool. I touched my tip to the dirt, and then I broke ground. Oh, the instant serotonin, endorphin and wiggly tingles overload my system, and that final pop of satisfaction just topped it all off. Oh, thanks for being there with me. I love holes, okay? Don't kink shame me. I started to dig, but I soon realised I did not have a crafting table for making stuff, so I quickly went back and knocked one up. Back at the hole, the topsoil had been removed. Switching to my pickaxe, I put my back into it and put in some work. I started to expose ores, which I began collecting, filling up any holes in the 9x9 boundary, keeping things neat. As I now had iron to smelt, I crafted a furnace, and as I had not brought or found any coal, I used a few sticks I had spare as fuel. I'm not as prepared as I thought. Noob. The hole was getting deeper, but progress was halted once my inventory was full. As I wasn't too far from the surface, I pillared up with dirt and went home briefly, as dumping a chest into the hole would just cause hassle later retrieving it. I used the chest I had to store the random blocks, emptying my inventory. I grabbed some nuggets of coal, replenished my sticks and got back to it. According to the coordinates, I was at Y52. The y-axis is the height of your location. And the spawner was at Y36. 16 more layers and we were in business. I finally got some coal ore and I ended up knocking through into a cave or tunnel. I usually would have been more cautious, but I could spy a torch through the gap. I had been here before. Jumping into the gap, I think I knew where I was, and after moving some blocks, it was confirmed. This hole was my entrance into the spawner room. I was on the final leg of my mission. I giddily raced back to the hole, ripped the roof off the dungeon and exposed the spawner. I dropped into the dungeon to dig the rest out from the inside, and then something weird happened that if I didn't see it happen, it would have left me puzzled for weeks. I was actually stood facing the llama when it kinda walked forward a bit, and for a lack of a better term or explanation, it briefly clipped into the torch, which made things dark, and the spawner chucked out a bloody skeleton. I think the skeleton was just as surprised as me because it didn't even immediately attack, it just kinda ran off into the corner first before gingerly firing arrows at me. I assumed the skeleton had heard the tales of me as a pioneer of murder growing up and was rightly scared to be in the presence of such a legend. I kinda felt sorry for him a bit. I am a badass. I looked up and admired my handiwork. Even though I was on the same level as the spawner, the room still needed to be dug out an extra 4 blocks lower. Spawning chambers are quite simple at a base level, just a 9x9x9 enclosed room with flowing water streams that collect and transport monsters into a kill room. Simple. The means of death is variable, but as a general rule of thumb, Minecrafters lean towards fun ways of dispatching folks. And when I say fun, think of it more like a vague umbrella term for fucking war crimes. I started removing the final blocks, then I had the misfortune of falling through a hole into a new chamber. Torches out immediately. I took a second to look and listen. No immediate danger, but I could hear some mobs that were close. Eyeing up the gold ore but realising my inventory was full, I shot back to the functional underground cave kingdom, dumped my stuff and then returned to get the gold. I found a couple more patches of gold and had a quick shufty about. There wasn't anything of interest, and if there was, it wasn't accessible without effort, so I just went back to the spawning chamber and sealed up the hole. The room now was essentially finished. I sealed up the last gaps in the wall and this stage of the build was complete. Banging! At my functional underground cave kingdom, I dumped the last of the blocks into a chest and put the copper, iron and gold into the furnace. I actually have another hole planned for another project of importance, and even though I still had an itch to reduce the mass of the planet, I curbed my enthusiasm and went topside to get the materials I needed to continue with my current task. I crafted lots of signs, 2 buckets and grabbed some glass. I filled up the buckets with H2O from the river and then I went to the top side of the hole for a quick chat. Tip time! Say you've got an hole that you want to get into but it's not safe enough to drop into, or it's a mission to go around. You can use water to safely descend into the hole. By placing water in the corner and letting it flow for a couple of seconds, then scooping the water back up, it creates a few blocks of water that travels down to where you want to be. Wait until the water stream is very near the bottom and then you jump into it. That's it. The water will cushion your fall. Another way is to just leave a block of water in the corner at the bottom of the build so you can just jump into it. Easy. Either one of these methods saves time overall. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. Outside the bottom of the spawning room, I wanted to put a floor over this drop for safety. So I went and mined some cobblestone from upstairs and put a floor down. Tip time! This might not seem a top tip to most folks, but I swear I've been playing Minecraft for about 3 years and only just found this out. To make an infinite source of water so you don't have to keep making multiple trips back and forth, all you need is 2 buckets of water. Make a well with 3 blocks of space inside it, then empty the water buckets to the far left and the far right of the well. The water flows to connect and now the middle water block is an infinite water source. There you go. Honestly, I wish I knew this trick sooner. I feel dumb. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. I needed to figure out which direction I wanted my water collection pipe to deliver the monsters to, so I cheated a bit, popped into creative mode to have a bird's eye view. It's just easier to show you what I'm thinking. This is the center reference block for the next hole I was on about, and as I don't want the spawner collection to run into the future build and vice versa, north and south are out of the question. West's kinda not where I want it to be, which just leaves east. This is the ambush cave entrance. This is the entrance to the functional underground cave kingdom base. So all this area is basically cave kingdom. I have future plans for farms on this hillside, so I'm going to try and feed all the drops from all the farms into a storage system underground. That's the plan anyway, but I'm sure I'll find some way of messing it up or have a new idea that changes everything. But for now, we're golden. I put a cobblestone marker on the east wall at the height of where the roof would be, then I started to knock out a corridor where the mobs will be transported to. I had a near miss with some lava and I dug into a cave that screamed creeper. And what do you know, right on cue. I was determined not to die. I had promised my stuntman a week off. As I was in a space tighter than Belle Delphine's pocket, I ran away. The creeper exploded behind me, and to be quite honest, what the F was that meant to be? A 4-block explosion? Pff, pathetic. I've got 2 creeper holes above ground that I could turn into bloody swimming pools. It must have been a baby. I dug a trench 2 blocks deep in the middle of the chamber, but after 6 blocks on the horizontal, I stepped the trench down a block. Water flows 7 blocks horizontally from the source block, so 8 blocks total. But a single stream can flow further if you step down the blocks it's flowing over like this. You get me? With the water flowing and me forgetting I was making content as I missed a few pictures, I dug out through the left side of the corridor's end and I was mostly confident I knew where I was. I knocked through into here, which is here from earlier. I laid down some light and I got my bearings. Everything was safe. Back at the original entrance to the spawning chamber, I dug out a corridor until I dropped through to where I'd just been. This was going to be my access tunnel into the kill chamber. I laid this wood block down at the last block of the water collection corridor during the footage I forgot to get. This block is essentially the killing chamber, or chopping block as I'm going to call it now, and this area will house the collection system. Oh, and remember the kill chamber has to be within the 15 block activation range of the spawner for everything to work. Don't forget that, it's very important. Right, water stuff. You see how the water runs into the trench? We don't want that, so you use signs to stop the flow. Right, and this is where Minecraft game physics gets a bit weird and iffy, so just bear with me, yeah? Even though this sign visually is not a full block, the water thinks it is a full block, so it won't flow through it. You see how it goes around? I attach signs to the other signs like this along the collection trench. This will stop the rest of the water at the edge, but mobs don't see the signs as full blocks and therefore can pass through them into the trench. I use my infinite water well. I placed water around the outer blocks of the chamber on one side and gave it a test drive. Cool. Now, with both sides lubed up and working, it was back to the kill chamber. I broke through to the water next to the chopping block and crafted some slabs. A slab is half a block that you can place as a top half or a bottom half of a block. I put a top half slab next to the water, and again, even though there is a visible gap that water should flow through, it treats it as a full block. But to me, the gap is still a gap that just happens to be big enough for me to stab shins through without allowing my prisoners to hit me back. Awesome. I wish I installed the collection system now, but I was super excited to see it work, so I slapped on a roof, pillared up to reach the torch, and extinguished the flame. 4 skeletons immediately popped into reality, landed in the water, and got transported down the trench. Yes! I sealed the room up, then Barry Allen'd it to the kill chamber. Everything was working fine, and I couldn't resist chopping a few skeletons down while they were defenseless. I am a badass. For the collection system, I crafted 4 chests. 2 chests were used for hoppers, and 1 hopper was combined with a minecart to make a hopper minecart. I just needed some rails, and we were on it. I knocked these 2 blocks out from under the chopping block, and in the space of the lower block, I put a hopper pointing out and attached a double chest to that hopper's output nozzle. A rail was placed on top of the hopper, and I added a hopper minecart to the remaining gap. Minecarts have a tendency to jiggle about sometimes, so I sealed it in with some glass. Now if I put a regular hopper under the chopping block, it wouldn't suck the items through for collection, but a hopper minecart will. Also, having a block gap from your killing chamber will make sure that you're not close enough for mob drops to accidentally end up in your inventory. While working on the collection system, the amount of skeletons had built up, and I'm not sure what they thought was going to happen, but they were queued up in a lovely line. While I murdered them, a thought niggled in my conscience. For all I know, these folks were lounging at home with the family before getting ripped into the void, teleporting into a dark box, drop 5 meters into a water stream, and then getting trapped into a stone tube while some armed youth dressed like a clown from a Tron movie stares at him through a window. And to be fair, they could have even had skin before this event, and during the travel experience they somehow were relieved of it. Bloody hell, I'm not sure I'm cool with this.